It is now March the 5th, 2013 at 6 p.m. in the City Hall at 116 West Bridge Street, Granbury, Texas, and the council is now in order. I'd like to call upon Corey Moses, Director of the Music and Worship with the First Methodist Church, to lead us in our invocation, and then we'll also stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and also the Texas Pledge. Please stand.
Please join me in prayer. Almighty God, at all times you are good. Your mercies are new every morning, and your grace is sufficient each day. Father, you are the great creator of all that we have known, now know, or will know. You continue to bless us beyond measure, beyond what we deserve. It's humbling, Father. Creator God, giver of life, source of strength and hope of our tomorrows, we thank you for the possibilities within this council. You've given us friends and colleagues, and we are grateful. You've given us meaningful work, and we are grateful. You've given us all that we have. Help us now, Heavenly Father, to move our gratitude to service. Help us, merciful Lord, to move our gratitude to action. Here and now, Father, we offer ourselves to you, not to earn your favor, but to honor your presence. We offer ourselves to you not to claim goodness or to pat ourselves on the back, God, but to simply say, thank you. Gracious God, here in this room there is a gathering of great minds and caring hearts. Hearts and minds that care deeply for this city and your beloved children that reside herein. May you grant these your servants wisdom to make the decisions that will best serve our city. Father, our society is faced with making decisions that you never intended us to make. Decisions that are only the result of mankind's great rebellion against you. Forgive us, Father. This council of your servants, of your great minds, has gathered this evening to discuss the matters of our city, of your city. Be glorified in their work tonight, Father. May you grant them discernment, O great God, and may you receive all the glory and honor in all that they do. Bless their time together, Father. Bless each of them here this evening as they continue the work that you have so graciously gifted them. And Father, we come to you humbly not only to invite, but to welcome your Holy Spirit here with us, guiding and directing this council. We ask all this in the name of our Savior and Redeemer. Father, we ask this in the name of Christ, our King. Amen.
Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor and praise to God. I pledge allegiance to you, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. At this time, I'd like to read a proclamation for the American Red Cross Month 13, and I'd like to call upon Richard Yano to come forward here, please. A member of the American Red Cross. Whereas March is American Red Cross Month, a special time to recognize and thank our heroes. And whereas we would like to remember those who help all of us here in Hood County areas by giving their time to help their neighbors and to thank our heroes. Whereas in the Chisholm Trail chapter, the Red Cross works tirelessly through its 40 employees and 771 volunteers to help when disaster strikes. And whereas across the country, the American Red Cross responds to nearly 70,000 disasters a year. And whereas our community depends on the American Red Cross, which relies on donation and the time, money, and blood to fulfill its humanitarian mission. Now, therefore, I, Nin Hewlett, the Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Granbury, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of Granbury, Texas, do hereby proclaim March 2013 as American Red Cross Month, and I encourage all Americans to support this organization and its noble humanitarian mission. Everybody knows he's on his way to Granbury. They've got a huge fire out there, and they're responding right now. We this time, I'd like to call upon Ruth White, Bob White, Andy White, and Andrew McKenzie with the Justin Plumbing, and we're going to present a check to the Granbury Police Department, the Granbury Fire Department, and the U.S. Veterans Museum. And if we could also get the representatives of all those to come forward, please. Hey, can you get them a mic? Rick? Hey, Rick.
Like he had stated, Bob White, Justice Plumbing, but what we had done is put on a Builders Expo about a month ago, and we had a great turnout. It was one day, it was a quick deal that we threw together that Granbury has never had, a Builders Expo. So we decided that what were we going to represent, and it was that we need to give back to the community. And this is all Andrew's idea, I just want you to know that. But it turned out well. We had a good attendance for such a short notice, and we were able to, just on donations alone, we charged, it was free to the public, and we had raffle items that each one of our vendors had donated, big, little, or small. I think the shotgun, the TV. Police department actually walked away with the TV. They thought that was rigged, but our daughter-in-law drew the ticket, so it was legit. But it was an opportunity for us to give back to the community. So the Veterans Museum, and at this time, I'll turn it over to Andrew, but it was $1,000 for each one. We were really excited. Our vendors were excited. I'm not ignoring you. The audience is excited. But our vendors were excited. So just to let you know that we'll do a little more advertising. We're planning now. We're sending out emails that in October, we've already penciled in, we're going to do a 2-day Builders Expo in and out. So we'll have more landscapers setting up items. Glen Eyre will be there. And we'll have a lot of the people that were there that said we want to do it each and every year. So hopefully, if everything goes well, we'll be able to raise money for the community in different areas each and every year. So thank you so much.
Like he said, thank y'all very much. We really appreciate the support of the community, and obviously we wanted to do something great for the community. So first of all, this is a check for the Granbury Police Department for $1,000. Thank you, sir. Oh. All right, and the next one is to the Veterans Museum, and again, it's for $1,000. And to our Granbury Fire Department. It's a nice picture. All right, thank y'all very much.
We are truly thankful for the service that you guys do provide, you know, to keep us safe at home. And it's just a little bit of Justice Plumbing to want to say thank you for what you people do as far as you on the council as well. I know what it is to serve, so thank you.
Thanks all. At this time, the City Council will conduct their open mic. As you know, the City Council will provide an opportunity for citizens to present concerns or address issues that are not matters of consideration listed on the posted meeting agenda. A person wishing to address the City Council must first register with the City Secretary and provide the following information: name, residence address, daytime telephone number, and the subject matter that they're going to present. Only one person may approach the microphone at any one time, and only that person at the microphone, upon recognition by the presiding officer, will be allowed to speak for no more than 3 minutes unless otherwise directed by the presiding officer. The speakers must address their comments to the presiding officer rather than individual City Council members or the staff. The speakers may file copies of the remarks or supporting information with the City Secretary, who will make the information available to the City Council and the City Manager if requested. The Council will be allowed to review input or information for the future agenda items, but will not be allowed to enter into any discussion. At this time, I'd like to call upon Tom Baker. And Tom, no, you can't talk twice. Nice try. but I'll let you talk a little longer if you wish.
No, I don't need 6 minutes, but I thought I'd just try anyways in case I need to stretch it.
It was interesting, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Tom Baker, 1002 West Pearl. The first part, I want to thank the City Council, Wayne McKethan, the city staff that helped us with Ricky's garage sale, yard sale that we had a couple weeks ago. When we first started thinking about this, we thought maybe $500, $600 we'd raise. We really had no idea where it would go. We started counting up the money. It just was fantastic. We raised over $5,000. We actually still are getting some money coming in. People that forgot about it, or they reached in their coat pocket and found another check or some money that was put in there when they were working on the, organizing the stuff that was being sold. We had many volunteers that were spending 25, 35, 40 hours in a 3-day or 4-day period. We made 18 trips around the county picking up stuff. Sometimes we were picking up from one point and taking it someplace else because we'd already sold it before it even got down to the square. So the end of the day on Saturday or on Friday, which wasn't even really open yet to the public, we'd raised almost $2,000. So that really gave us a big boost, but we really had no idea where it was going to go. So it was fantastic. Of course, there was a group that's working on another live auction and silent auction in the fish fry, which will be up at the Reunion Fairgrounds the last Saturday month, March 30th. There'll be more information in the newspaper. We're putting together items. There's people here that have already been working on it almost every day of the week and such. We're still getting calls from the contacts we'd made from the yard sale with people that have something else that they want to donate to one of the auctions. So we're hoping that the bars here, they're going to surpass it and such. Okay, that's the first part. The second part is Texas Independence Day celebration, which was this past weekend. The second one that was here in Granbury, the first one was really put together on a very much of a shoestring and I think like a 7-week period or whatever. This one had a whole year to organize, and it went quite well. Different vendors, nice weather, again, help from the city staff and such for closing the square and the streets around it and such. This is going to be an annual event. Obviously, it's in conjunction with the independence of Texas, which is March 2nd, but we'll be doing it, not we, the committee, I think, is deciding that there will be a weekend designated for the event, and then if it falls like during the week, Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever, there'll be a small presentation, a commemoration of the actual Independence Day, but then we'll have the vendors and such on the square, down at Langdon Center, Granbury Square Plaza. I mean, they were hoping to get 30, maybe 40 vendors, and they had over 80 vendors for this first one. So different focus, different ideas, few glitches, but we'll work them all out, and next year will be even better. And I'm at 3 minutes for 2 subjects, so I got it here, taken care of. Thank you.
Get it all. Folks, I'm gonna deviate from the agenda just a little bit here, but I'm looking out here and I noticed a gentleman sitting out here in the crowd, and I really want to recognize him because this is one of the best fiddle players I've ever heard, and I want him to stand up and just introduce himself. I can't remember his name, but I heard him all over town this weekend. This kid's good. Pardon? Roberts. Robertson. Roberts. Well, thank you so much for your contribution to the celebration this week. It really made it fun. Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we'll move into the consent agenda, the approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting of February 19th, 2013. Council, you've had a chance to look over the agenda items or the minutes of that February 19 meeting. Is there any discussion or any changes that you'd like to make? With that, I'll move to have a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
I've got a motion by Mr. Parsons. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Couch has seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Those minutes approved. Next, we'll move into the deliberation agenda. And first one will be a public hearing regarding the request of Agaro Granbury Partners, LLC, and Romaldo Hernandez to replat blocks A through D of the Sunrise Bay Edition as lots 1-R and 2-R, blocks A of the Sunrise Bay Edition, and consider and approve the said replat. Now, this property is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Sunrise Bay Court and FM 4. With that, I'll open the public meeting and call on Scott Sopcich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Mr. Manager. The proposal is to replat approximately 4 existing lots of record into 2.
Can we have you pause there just a minute? We've got some audio problems here right now.
We're not seeing anything on the screens.
The council doesn't have any on the screens up here. Mr. Allen sitting on the cord.
Okay, still. They're not watching Okay.
We'll just go ahead and use our little pads here. Go ahead, Scott.
What's being proposed is to take 4 existing lots platted out as in blocks but previously recorded into 2 lots. And what's being proposed is to accommodate 2 lots. The westernmost, which is to your left on the screen, is the proposed site for a new Dollar General store. Get to the plat. There's an aerial. There's the plat being recorded. Lot 1R is the site for the Dollar General. Lot 2R, Block 1, is the out parcel from the original 4 blocks being owned by Mr. Hernandez, who was part of the replat as well. The plat has variances associated with it. It's got a variance request to 31E and 410 to not improve the 3 adjoining streets, Oak Trail Drive, Sunrise Bay Court, and FM4 to urban standards. We got a variance to 39 and 45 to not extend an 8-inch central sewer main through off-street frontages. What's being proposed on the Dollar General lot is to sustain that development through a septic system. The lot to the east of that, which is shown as Lot 2R Block 1, is diminished in size and does not meet the acreage threshold to permit a septic system by county standards. So what staff requested and the applicant has agreed to is to have that property owner, Mr. Hernandez, sign and certify that he's acknowledging that he knows that by today's development standards in the county, he cannot obtain a well and septic permit for that particular lot. And he's fine with that. But he's part of the replat transaction, donating some of his acreage over to the Dollar General site in order to make it a developable site. And then lastly, we have a variance request to 39 and 46 to not upsize the existing central water main. What's sustaining the site right now is a 2-inch water service line by Monarch. We do have a letter from Monarch Utilities saying that they have adequate pressure and volume to serve the proposed development. Both P&Z and our city engineers looked at the application, and with the certification notes on the replat and Mr. Hernandez acknowledging that he does not have the acreage to sustain a developable site to the lot to the east, P&Z and city staff and the city engineer recommend approval of the variances and the replat as proposed.
Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this behalf? Council? Any questions for Scott?
Mayor, I have one.
Mr. Allen?
Where will the access be at, Scott, coming off? Would they be on 4 or would they be on
No, sir. They would actually be on the 2 local streets, which would be Sunrise Bay Court. You can actually see the platted fire lane ingress and egress points. Sunrise Bay Court and Oak Trail, just located to the west of the property.
I
So
don't see any on 4, but
there is no access on Highway 4.
good.
Any more questions for council? With that, I'll close the public hearing. Council, entertain a motion to consider and approve the said plat.
Second.
When we approve that, we make sure that we do that with the variances. Is that okay there? With the variances, okay. Got a second with that, Mr. Allen?
Yes, sir.
May I ask a question? Do we need to also include the fact that we're putting the notation on the Mylar?
The notation is already on the plat.
already written
so
on
it's
there.
been accommodated.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Any more questions from the council?
One more. I believe you
Mr.
said
Allen?
y'all approved the drainage already, right?
The city engineer has looked at the site drainage plan. See it here. And has approved that we do have correspondence from the engineer accepting the drainage plan as submitted.
No further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. This one passes. The next one we have is a public hearing regarding the request of John Andrus to final plat a 0.860 acre tract of the Robert Merritt Survey, abstract number 355, as Lot 2, Block 1 of the Luton Ranch West Edition, Phase 2A, and consider and approve the said final plat. This property is located west of the intersection of Meander Road and Highway 377 East. With that, I'll open a public hearing and call upon Scott Terry.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Mr. Manager, this is a site that we've seen previously in a couple of public hearings. First as a preliminary plat, which carved out the entire parent tract, which is to the west of Meander, north of US 377. What's being proposed now is to final plat one out parcel for the entire development, Luton Ranch West, to accommodate a proposed taco casa. The preliminary plat had all the necessary variances on it, so there are no variances applied to this final plat application. There was a couple of outstanding issues from DRC that were discussed at the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. They have since been remedied. Those two are, first and foremost, that they wanted, the DRC and the city wanted to see a copy of the TxDOT access permit. And secondly, that we needed correspondence from TxDOT accepting the additional stormwater runoff into the 377 right-of-way. We have since received a copy of the permit. I believe a copy of the permit's in your packet, agenda packet as well. And as an attachment to that permit, there were storm drainage plans. They're referenced as attachment A. Our engineer has looked at those attachments that were reviewed by TxDOT, showing the calculations of the stormwater runoff onto 377 as well as the culvert calculations, and has accepted them. I think you have an email stating that fact in your agenda packet as well. So with respect to the P&Z deliberations and the two conditions imposed, those conditions staff believes have been remedied. So there's no longer a need to conditionally deny this plat. As such, the final plat meets all the DRC comments and staff's expectations. Staff recommends approval of the final plat as submitted.
Thank you, Scott. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment on this? Council? With that, I'll close the public hearing. Council, is there any more thoughts on this? With that, I'll entertain a motion to consider and approve the said final plat of this property located west of the intersection of Meander Road and Highway 377 East. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Parsons, a second by Mr. Allen. Is there any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. This is approved. Our next one is a public hearing regarding the request of the City of Granbury, at the request of the Lodge and its HOA, to rezone 401 East Pearl Street, being 0.986 acres, described as File Plat 2 of the Lodge of Granbury, from light commercial to multiple family, and consider approve an ordinance providing for said rezoning. With this, I would ask Councilman Mr. Couch, I think he signed a letter because he is the president of the HOA, to excuse himself from this. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Scott, you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. What's being proposed is a request on behalf of the lodge and its HOA that the city request a rezoning application to take the property that's bordered in blue from light commercial, its present classification, to multifamily. The reason the request came forward is they would like to build carports in the area for parking to support the lodge facility, and that's covered under a previous lease agreement. The rezoning basically allows for the construction of the vertical improvements. Our zoning ordinance basically has a requirement that says no building permit may be issued unless it's properly zoned in the correct district. Since we're having multifamily supported use for parking on the site, it's reasonable that the request for multifamily to support the multifamily parking on site be conducted. Just as a side note, we've got a initial site plan showing the placement of the carports, and you can see generally kind of a graphic depiction. You'll notice they're closer to the west side of the common property line. That purple line is the approximate location of the building setback line. They will, if they get approval on the zoning tonight, they will have to go to the Board of Adjustment in order to get a setback encroachment. That Board of Adjustment meeting scheduled for Thursday. Let's see. During the deliberations, P&Z looked at a couple of factors. One was the correlation of the request against the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan considers or recommends commercial use on this particular property. So we have to make that reading again like we always do. What happens if the zoning request is incongruent with the comprehensive plan? In this particular case, the comprehensive plan was adopted in 2008. The lease that we have on the books predated the 2008 comprehensive plan, so the P&Z made that acknowledgement in the book, saying that, in their opinion, that the lease predated and vested the use consideration that was taking place, which was of parking support for the lodge facility before the adoption of the 2008 comprehensive plan. Additionally, in their motion to recommend approval to you, they requested that the city, more specifically the city attorney, research the lease to ensure that the physical improvements to the site, if they're accepted by the city council, the carports, which is being proposed, that the issues of ownership, maintenance, and liability are addressed. They brought up a couple of considerations. One is who's going to own the physical improvements if, for example, the HOA or the owner makes an investment. Who's going to own the improvements after the lease terms out? And then secondly, what happens if we get in a catastrophic situation, there's a wind shear and the carport falls on somebody's car there at the lodge? They want to make sure that the city's properly covered in those types of scenarios. And those reports and recommendations were forwarded after the P&Z to the city attorney for his information. So long story short, P&Z, based on those two issues, the addressing of the comprehensive plan and the report that they're deferring to the city attorney's knowledge on the lease agreement, made a recommendation of approval.
So Scott, in a nutshell, what we're doing here tonight is trying to approve just a permit to be able to build carports. We're not approving to build them, correct?
That's pretty much correct. We're not looking at whether or not signs are allowed on the site. We're not looking at whether or not the numerical value assigned to the lodge residents, for example, is correct. What we're looking for is or at least what the application proposes, is to get the zoning district correct, to allow for the permitting of the carports. You can't permit it without it being in the correct district.
So in a later date, if we was to approve the light commercial to the multifamily, and they didn't get approved for the building, I mean, it could still stay as the multifamily for any use later on down the line, right?
It could stay as used for the multifamily. And the other thing that's allowed under the zoning ordinance, since it is city property, is that all municipal uses that are cataloged in the zoning ordinance are allowed by right in multifamily. So by the city zoning this or requesting the zoning from light commercial to multifamily, we're not taking away any of our land use entitlements as a municipality.
Okay. Does anybody in the public have anything to state about this? Council, do we have any? With that, go ahead, Ms. Parsons.
From the attorney, do you have the answers to those questions?
Councilman Parson, after I reviewed the lease that we have in existence from 1983, it does cover all three of the issues. First of all, on the issue of maintenance, section 4.01 of the lease says the lessee shall at its own expense and risk maintain the leased premises and any improvements erected thereon. So that would, I read that to mean the lodge would maintain those. As far as what happens at the termination of the lease, first of all, the lease doesn't terminate for, the initial term doesn't terminate for another 20 years, plus there's 50 years of options. So in 70 years, when the lease terminates, section 5.02 says any alterations or deletions to the lease premises transfer with the property back to the lessor, which would be the city. So in 70 years, the carports would belong to the city if the lease isn't renewed. Finally, as to the liability issues, the lease does require the lodge to have insurance and also to carry the city as an individual, as an additional insured in section 5.05, as well as an indemnity clause in section 6, which holds that the lessee agrees to indemnify and hold harmless the city against any and all claims, demands, damages, costs, and expenses, including attorney's fees for the defense thereof of claims arising from the lessee's use of the leased premises. In addition, the city would have its own defenses if a litigation was to arise that we won't discuss now, but we can certainly do that.
Do we have insurance now that covers us on that parking lot, don't we?
All of the city does have an umbrella liability policy that covers all of its properties.
I'm talking about under Gary's lease agreement for that
Yes,
lot.
yes, that's in section 5.05. It says that he has to have insurance and have us listed as well.
Thank you. Any more discussion from the council?
Mayor,
Mr. Allen?
I know we're not giving a permit out tonight, but I wasn't on the council when it happened, but I know we passed some stuff, or the council passed some stuff in the past on the beach that didn't meet the rock requirements and the mortar and a bunch of stuff, and I think it looks beautiful down there. And if I'd been on the council, I would have voted the way it is today. It's beautiful. But on these car parks, it says there'd be rock columns. Is that all the way up, Gary, to the top?
Well, I'll give you the picture,
Sir?
There's another picture, I don't know if Scott has it or not. I'm sorry.
That's
That's what we got. There's a picture of where we've got the stone going about 5 feet, and then the rest is the post.
But basically, Scott, it would have to meet those, and what Mr. Allen's talking, it would have to meet the requirements that's set by the city, right?
Yes. Generally, we like to see stone all the way up until actually the anchoring takes place, or where you see the support columns or the cantilevered portion where it gets a little tougher to actually put the stone. So our typical masonry requirement for carports is to bring the stone up to the highest point where the structural elements starts to split and cantilever to the best extent possible. A good example is the stone columns on the apartment complex on 51.
Right.
So we'll work with the applicant. If he needs a variance, certainly he has the ability to apply that, but certainly he's availed to us that he has an intention to stone the column up to the highest extent possible.
Another question, Scott, that I've been asked was about the water runoff. I didn't see any study like y'all did on the other, on the dollar store in here. Do y'all feel like it's going to be a problem with the water? I know it's going to the lake, which is great, but is that, are they gonna have gutters on or anything to keep it from flashing when people get out?
What we'll do is we'll have generally, when we get these, we have the building department look at these, but to be honest with you, in looking at it at first blush, the impervious cover is already on the ground. We're not adding impervious cover. We're just adding another layer. That runoff basically hits the parking surface and naturally flows where it's going anyway. But I would suspect at the time that the plans are submitted, we can actually have a discussion on the amount of impervious cover added, if any, or where. Sometimes these carports have collection devices and rain spouts bringing the water to another point where it's distributed on the parking surface as well. We can look how the water's managed in that case. If we need an engineer to take a look at it after we get the plans, we can certainly do that. But you're right, by and large, from the parking surface that's in place, the stormwater obviously just runs off to the south, which is to the lake.
I'm looking at it and saying, okay, when you get out of your car, you're gonna run right underneath of it, go into the building. If that water's, if the roof is tilting back towards the building, you're gonna get a lot of water on them. And with gutters or downspouts, that's gonna help them too. And I know Gary's built enough of these, he knows what he's doing, but I just think it's something we should look at.
We'll notate it as a concern and let the building department be aware that there was a stated concern by council regarding the stormwater runoff, and Alva and the chief building official will take a look at it at the time plans are submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any more comments from the council? With that, I'll close the public hearing. Any more discussion? With that, I'll entertain a motion to consider and approve the ordinance providing for the said rezoning for the said property.
So moved.
Got a motion by Mr. Parsons. I hear a second. Second by Mr. Perkle. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. That public hearing passes. Our next item, go ahead and come back up here, Greg. As we've discussed, and you're going to hear this at every council meeting, but I know you're not tired of hearing about it because you'd like to hear this information, but we're going to discuss the status of the Opera House redevelopment project and consider and approve any recommendations from the Opera House redevelopment committee. With that, I'm going to call on first Wayne, which is the chairperson of this Opera House advisory committee, to give us an update, and I'm sure he's going to have Mr. Bill Scott also talk.
Yes, I simply have him here to update where we're at. We're very close in terms of being able to come up with some early stage processes that would actually get going. But I would rather that Bill Scott talk about that as opposed to myself. And we need to have a committee meeting here very soon. We're looking maybe at Friday of this week, hopefully, to get back together as a committee. Bill Scott, can you talk about that?
Yes, sir. Hear me okay?
Speak in the mic.
Yes, sir. After last council meeting, the subcommittee met and basically figured out one of the remaining problems with the restroom area. Turns out it's a great solution that works real well. That allows us to basically push forward with the two packages we've been pushing. One is an early package that Wayne's referring to. The other is the rest of the building. The early package is about the 90% mark. It lacks a couple of small details to get figured out, and when those are figured out and drawn, that whole package will be priced and brought before the council, brought before the subcommittee, before the council, reviewed, and then sent through the process of approval. Once that's approved, that simultaneously could be submitted to the building official for permitting, and once we have approval from both parties, we should go to work time on the early package. The rest of the building is 50% complete with the design and progressing well. We're going to have some other call for some meetings in addition to the one Friday potentially was for some additional design work from the subcommittee and the theater consultants to talk about some of the particulars that we're needing some answers on. But we're really moving along quite well, we feel. So, our report.
What we'd like to hear you say is you're ahead of schedule.
Well, we feel like we're on schedule. We feel like we'd have lost about a week, but there was a little contingency built in there. We found out a couple of things about the building, but I don't think anybody knew. And when we're waiting on a soil retention process that an engineer, a separate engineer, has to look at those extremely old walls and the dirt that it's sitting on. We're waiting on a revised soil report that analyzes our structure with the borings that were previously done. It's basically updating your soils report. And once we get all that, it'll tell this guy to do this and that guy to do that, and get some answers and get it all in print. Needs to go to the CBO for a building approval process as a partial permit as an early work package, and then we're off and going.
Would you explain the issue on the roof?
Well, there's two. The first one is the existing roof is not attached to the building. It's I believe it's 1986. I'm not sure of that date, but there was I believe the roof structure was replaced. And I shouldn't say it's not entirely not attached. It's attached with what we believe is some banding iron attached to some fasteners attached to the wall. That is not sufficient for what you're trying to do. And the engineers, we met this morning with our structural engineers and architect to work out what that particular detail might be. And he's worked on it. He's brought several of the details. We've got to price several of the alternates to say which one we think would be better, faster, that kind of thing, and then we'll tell them to put it on the paper.
So you're talking about something that's going to be able to support the air conditioning unit up there as well as anything else that we would put.
It's your entire roof structure.
Right.
The structure itself.
It hasn't blown off yet to this day. But
no, it hadn't. You're right. But when you take off the back wall, you can you might could think of it as a kite. Really? In its march, I'm assuming we're going to get some pretty significant winds through here in the next 2 months, and having your back end open with a not attached roof is not probably a good thing. So we're going to kind of resequence the way we're looking at it. We'll, instead of taking the wall down first, we will have to go in and fasten that all down. And then there's another detail, the second detail I was telling you about with the wall. When the wall actually is demolished, there will be some bracing that will have to be done in the corners that remain prior to demolishing that wall. So there's really two things to do to the building prior to taking the wall down. But it's all, it's going to be done either way, so it's progress. It'll be done safely and soundly.
Safely and cheaply.
Sir?
Safely and cheaply, right? Okay.
Well, that's a relative term, yes, sir.
Council, any questions for Mr. Scott there?
I'd like to say one thing is that knowing the property down there and the age of the property, let's get a 2% slope at least on those walls where it's not been flat. Many of them are flat down there, and been a lot of problems.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We do have. I think it's about a 1% slope, but we're not taking the water to the edges of the building the way it was previously done. We're bringing it in shorter spans to 4 central roof drains over the existing theater, then piped out to the east. The new stage addition has drains in the back of it. There's about 9 drains total, I believe, on the entire structure. And there's a lot of cricketing, if you will, polyisocyanate insulation that builds it up into a slope instead of a flat. The existing roof is just about flat. It's got a little fall to it, but the new structure will be sloped to help with the offset of that roof insulation. There'll be sufficient drainage. Yes, sir.
Although you don't have a price, you were saying that probably the reconnection of that roof is not a major expenditure, probably around $10,000.
I don't know. I told you over the phone today $10,000. I'm going to tell you it might be a little more than that. I don't think it's a huge hit to us.
Okay.
But it's something that absolutely has got to get done.
I didn't want them to leave thinking that's a huge expenditure.
No, sir. No, sir. It's basically attaching a 2x-member all the way around the perimeter, through bolting a all-thread rod through the building, I don't know if you know European masonry work where they're all basically falling down, and what they do is they go through them with through bolts, just a bolt going through it with a bolt and a nut and a nut, and they tighten those with a piece of steel, and it compresses the top of the walls, giving it extended life, and that's what we're planning on doing. So,
I think Mr. Couch has got something he wants to ask.
Yes.
Bill, we're 90% through on the first bid package.
Yes,
the
sir.
two.
Yes, sir.
When do you think we will have 100%?
I hope tomorrow night or the next night. Now that
so this
simultaneously being priced by our estimating staff and internal pricing, and we're thinking about the time we've got that, we'll have just about soon thereafter that price. That price has got to go to the subcommittee for, hey, look, the elements of work in our master budget was this, apples to apples with the early package is that. It should be deviating by plus or minus whatever the value of the roof fix is, and then a blessing from them. And well,
you're thinking by the end of the week we will have
I think
a
that's
package
fair.
ready to go to bid for the initial.
I think, well, it depends on how we bid it. We're going to obviously bid the rebar and the formwork section of the job. The roofing's not going on. The demolition could be bid. We don't want to have an extended bid period for this first phase of work. The real bid packages are in the 90, what I'm calling the DD package, which is 50% complete. That's where really all the multiple of the trades are, subs and suppliers. This first package is basically dirt, concrete work, and some demolition.
And so you think that'll be done this week?
I think we'll have the design for it, hopefully by tomorrow night, maybe Thursday night. And we're
we can
pricing
talk about it on
go.
Friday meeting, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
We hopefully would have it all to you at this next meeting.
And basically, and the committee approves it, and then it goes out to bid.
Well, the process is still to be defined. I'm not sure how they'll tell us which packages to bid and which packages to go.
Okay.
At the point he has the bidding and price ready, we will call a special meeting of the council. I mean, that's our plan. So we won't.
That'll help expedite it.
Right. We won't wait 2 weeks. We'll go ahead and call it early.
Council, any more questions for or concerns for Bill? Thank you, Bill. With that, we'll close this discussion.
Yes, sir.
Look forward to hearing about it again the next council meeting. Our next item on the agenda is to consider and approve a municipal lease agreement between the City of Granbury and the Houston Community Bank for the lease purchase of equipment listed in Exhibit A, which I guess you can see them out there, and consider and adopt a certified resolution for the governing body authorizing personnel property lease agreement and its designation as a qualified tax-exempt obligation. Wayne, you want to give us an update on that?
Absolutely. This is on January 8th of 2013, we awarded the lease purchase financing bid to Houston Community Bank for the $282,800 of financing that we needed. Going out and getting individual bids like that is really working well for us. This 5-year term financing is at 1.18%, which is a tremendous interest rate. And so it's going to save us a lot of money. And but the fact we're going out and doing individual bids on this thing as opposed to going through a lease purchase company, they require more documentation to protect their rights and so forth. And so this has been, you've seen us now come back with 2 or 3 of these packages where we're saying we really need to have adopt and certified resolution of governing body authorizing personal property lease agreement and its designation as a qualified tax-exempt obligation. So that's why we're just bringing this forward. It's more of a documentation process because the equipment's already been approved in the budget and it's already been agreed to in the financing. And the staff recommends that we go ahead and do this.
Council, any discussion? With that, I entertain a motion to consider and approve the municipal lease agreement between the City of Granbury and the Houston Community Bank of the lease purchase of the equipment listed in the Exhibit A, and consider and adopt a certified resolution of the governing body authorizing personnel property lease agreement and its designation as a qualified tax exempt obligation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion by Mr. Allen. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Couch. No more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. That lease agreement passes. Our next item on the agenda is to consider and approve a contract amount of $57,495 with the, here we go, Ava, the Instaform Technologies LLC for construction of the city's 2013 sewer rehab, which is on Pearl Street and Morgan Street, utilizing the Texas statewide cooperative purchasing contract number 354-10, administered through the buy board. And we do budget this every year, and it was brought up in our budget review. I'm going to have Alva Cox to come up and talk on that a little bit, if you would, Alva. Maybe you can pronounce that better than I do.
Yes, sir. I think I jinxed you earlier by saying that. So.
You did.
Yes, sir. As the Mayor Pro Tem was talking about, we do have this budgeted every year. We replace, actually, reline, I guess what we do, existing sewer mains. And the mains that we're doing on this job right here is actually up on Pearl and Houston, or 144, 377. And basically it's in the state right-of-way, so this is a less invasive way. Instead of going in and replacing 800 feet in the middle of the highway, we actually come in with a liner and actually go straight through the old clay tile line and replace it that way. So, and the other thing is by doing it this way, you're looking at anywhere between 4 to 8 hours to complete 800 feet, where it would take us 2 to 3 weeks if we open cut it and ran it that way. So it's a lot better process when you can use it. Sometimes you can't use it all the time, but this is also an agreement that we've done, actually I guess 6 years, I believe, Wayne, with the TCQ to actually help with our sewer backup, sewer overflows and things like that to help the environment. When we started this program 6 years ago, replacing the sewer mains, we were looking at roughly anywhere between about 80, almost to 100 backups a year. Since we've been doing this the last 6 years, and we've actually replaced roughly about 50,000 feet. What we've done is we're down to probably about anywhere between 8 to 12, depending. You know, sometimes there's things that vary, but roughly in that range. So we've actually cut it by 90% by doing this. The other thing that we've noticed by doing this is our sewer flows at the wastewater treatment plant, the infiltration, we've actually dropped it 20 to 30%. Before, what we used to get is, because of the clay tile lines that you have in there, you have cracks, you have all sorts of things. The rainwater actually seeps into the mains and actually goes to the wastewater treatment plant, which means you're treating rainwater is what you're treating, which it costs money. By doing this process, again, we've eliminated a lot of that too, 20 to 30% off that as well. So we've noticed a lot of gains by doing this. So it's definitely something that is very beneficial to us. Again, we have so much budgeted, but so that's kind of.
Yeah, the technology is unbelievable. In layman's terms, you're putting a membrane inside the pipe and blowing it up like a balloon, and therefore it keeps, the sewer and the things out and things in. But the technology of being able to do that in 4 hours instead of 3 or 4 weeks with a road torn up is amazing technology.
Correct.
It really is.
Albert, did we do the last one with the Instaform Technologies?
We did. Actually, that one we did a pipe bursting.
Was the dollar amount about similar to this, or was it a little more?
It was a little bit more because it was bursting. We went from a 6-inch line up to an 8-inch line through the middle of the park, so it was a little bit more expensive. It was about $3 per foot more.
Council, any questions for Alva? With that, I'll move that we have a motion to approve the contract amount of $57,495 with Instaform Technologies LLC for the construction of the city's 2013 sewer rehab and utilizing the Texas State Cooperative Purchasing Contract number 354-10 administered through the buy board. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion by Mr. Parson. Do I hear a second? Second. Second by Mr. Perkle. Any more discussion, council?
I noticed Alvin never did say the name.
Oh, and
he can't pronounce. He can't pronounce.
I did jinx him. He actually said it right earlier.
We could have Mr. Allen say it for you, but
I'll be more than happy.
Thank you.
But if you want to, I went down last year when y'all did this. It's a real interesting
process. Yeah.
Any citizen ought to go see it. I mean, I've never seen it done like that, but it's really neat. And a lot cheaper than do it the old way.
Yes, sir.
What's fascinating that they cut the holes for the other lines. The machine cuts the holes. They don't have to, it just goes and cuts the holes.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't see.
Thank you, council. Al, you might as well stay up here. I think you're on next.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. That contract's approved. Our next one is to consider and award a contract of construction of replacement well 1A to the low bidder of $101,995 to Dow Well Service, Stephenville, Texas. Al, you want to bring
Yes,
us
sir.
up to date?
As most of y'all know, we've been trying to get as many wells as we can. We took out a bond, 2012 utility bond, to drill the wells. We've been shooting for at least 10 wells. This is number 6, by the way, so we're 60% there. So we're trying to get there. But this is actually located, you can see the picture up there. It's actually right behind the post office where this is at. Again, so far with this one included, we're probably looking at about 400, almost 500,000 gallons once these are all drilled, the 6 that we have per day. So it's definitely something that we've been needing. It's something that's helped us out. So again, like I said, with the city manager and with council, putting the bond forward, this definitely helps all of us. So again, we also had, just kind of go in detail on it, we did have 2 bidders, by the way. Again, we had Nelson Thomas, which was actually, he was $107,000 on this well. The reason this is a little bit cheaper, some of y'all may be looking at it, and like I think the last one we had was $275,000 or something like that. Reason for that is this is only the well by itself. That's it. We didn't have to do a pump station because where this is located, we already have a pump station in place. And those are optimal. When we can find places like that, that saves us a lot of money because we don't have to put in the infrastructure or anything. We don't have to put tanks. We don't have to put all the chlorine and the ammonia in place, which saves us a lot of money. So this right here, basically it goes straight to those tanks. We've already got a water line actually sitting about 3 feet from where this thing's going to be drilled.
When you say we can find a place, why don't we look for places like that?
Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. That's my first choice normally.
All right. Council, any question for him? Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to consider and award the contract of construction of the replacement well 1A to the low bidder of $101,995 to Dow Well Service in Stephenville, Texas. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion by Mr. Allen. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Couch. Council, any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. That contract is awarded. Our next item is to consider and request from the Granbury Housing Authority for pardon of payment in lieu of taxes, which is called pilot. Wayne, I'll let you update us on that one.
Yes. Each year what we normally do, we had not been doing it before, but last year we did, is we agreed to an agreement with the Granbury Housing Authority that we would accept the allocation of 10% of the gross earnings as opposed to the actual ad valorem taxes. This allows the Housing Authority to control their cost in terms of the providing services to the people who need their services. And so we are being asked to approve that 10% of revenue, basically, again, of their gross earnings. And staff recommends that we accept it.
How many years have we done that, Wayne?
Well, we've been doing it for quite some time, but we haven't been passing this resolution. We passed it last year. I believe Nelda, I think it was, I think Nelda said it was just not done for 4 or 5 years. But I think the auditors required that, and so we had to start doing it again.
What's the dollar amount there, Wayne?
I don't know that. Well, we don't know what their earnings are going to be. It's about, I think, about half of what the ad valorem is. I mean, it's not as much as the ad valorem tax. It is saving them quite a bit of money.
Yeah, I remember us doing it last year, and they were going to get back, or somebody was with a figure on that, and I never did hear what it was.
Oh, okay. I can get back. I'll get back to you on that.
Council, any more discussion on this item? With that, I entertain a motion to consider the request from the Granbury Housing Authority for the pardon for the payment in lieu of taxes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilman Couch. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Got a second by Councilman Perkle. Parsons, I'm sorry. I thought it was Perkle over there. Any more discussion, council? That, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. That request is passed. With that, being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.